So, inspired by Claire Payne and Michael Halliday's work on oral language development in the home, those were the main influences on Joan Rothery, who designed pedagogy. I was also influenced, I should say, by Brian Gray, who worked in Indigenous schools in Australia and was more influenced by Vygotsky, so there is that coming through. We developed our grounding principle for the pedagogy. It's kind of distill the essence of what Halliday and others have shown. Namely, language learning, teaching happens. Guidance through interaction in the context of shared experience. Everybody learns to talk in the home, so we're reasoning, how could we ensure that everyone learns to write in school? Well, we must find some way of taking this principle and translating it into the classroom. So we set up to develop a pedagogy for teaching, learning, literacy in school. It featured two-way interaction. A scaffolding dyad, asymmetry. Let's be honest, the teacher knows more than the student, including talking about language. So we make learning to write as much as we can in an institutional setting, like learning to talk. Now our language traps us, of course, doesn't it? So we teach, we learn. Actually, my native dialect of English, learn and teach are the same word. You know, somebody does something, makes a mistake, that'll teach you my native dialect, that'll learn you, I would say. Lots of dialects of English do that. Okay, so we're sort of trapped into thinking one way or the other, I'll teach it, I'll learn it. If you've seen these ambigrams, one of my American colleagues, Andres Ramirez, used one of these in the talk. So if we had this verb in English, we'd be a lot better off in education, I think. Okay, so now what I'll do is take you through the attempts that we made to design a genre that would work democratically in classrooms, giving access to written text. Okay, as far as literacy curriculum was concerned, okay, I use curriculum in the sense of what we teach, like the learning, teaching verb transitive. We interpreted culture from a socio-semiotic perspective as a system of genres. Technically speaking, realized through recurrent configurations of meaning across modalities, multimodally realized, as staged, goal-oriented social processes, genre, language, and the other modalities. Staged because it usually takes us more than one phase of meaning to work through a genre. Goal-oriented because unfolding phases are designed to accomplish something, and we feel a sense of frustration or incompleteness if we're stopped. And social because we undertake genres interactively with others. So that's giving the what to teach, learn what, which is very important. This is an example I won't take time to read through. I think you have text type-based syllabi here in Singapore. You might be familiar with exposition genre or even have been taught it when you were in school. Basic idea, you have a thesis, some arguments supporting the thesis, and then reiteration of the thesis at the end. So here, the students debating about a local issue around building a little theater in a local park. Give some reasons as to why, and so on. So, in terms of knowledge about language, we were working in a situation where our progressivist educators had removed all knowledge about language from the curriculum. Absolutely all. So still my students come to first year linguistics with no knowledge of noun verb. They might have heard of noun verb, but they can't find one in a text, so absolutely nothing. But we didn't try to reintroduce knowledge about language at the grammar level, but rather at the genre level, using technical terms for the different genres, using technical terms for the different stages of the genre, and possibly sub-stages or phases, as David Rose would call them, and so on. And that text we looked at was at a stage where the students had been through a cycle, got control of this structure, and then we're working on this structure here, previewing their arguments, and then in their arguments having a little topic sentence or hypertheme, which they then would elaborate. And this is something that was causing them trouble. hard to preview the argument without giving the argument, so they were getting in trouble there. And then making sure that any argument they previewed was actually in their essay and referred back to the introduction. That's what they're working on there. So this kind of conception of curriculum of the what raises all kinds of issues that I'm just setting aside today. What genres do we teach? So initially, one thing we were trying to do is get a focus on factual writing into the curriculum to balance the almost exclusive focus on story writing, recount writing that we observed. How do we model the genre structure? Puzzle metaphor for thinking about the structure of a report. How do we build a learner pathway? In other words, which genres in which sequence can we introduce them in a way that makes sense, bridging from spoken culture to the written culture of higher level secondary education and through to academia. There's a little spiral curriculum for the history genres that Caroline Coffin specialized in. How much knowledge about language do we introduce to teachers, and then how much of that knowledge do teachers and students share, working in a context where you're starting absolutely from scratch? That has some advantages and disadvantages in relation to a context where there's only traditional grammar in place. I think traditional grammar is better than no grammar as a starting point. How much knowledge about graphology and phonology, about grammar and lexis, about cohesive relations in text, about the register and genre of a discourse? How much of that knowledge do we actually need, want, hope for, dream of? Today we'll just look at pedagogy, how to implement the guidance through interaction in the context of shared experience in literacy lessons. In other words, what Fran Christie calls curriculum genres. We had to design, we realized very quickly, a distinctive pedagogy for teaching genre. Otherwise everything worked very badly. And I'll introduce this by spoofing traditional, what I'll call traditional and progressive. The progressivists now call themselves constructivists. I'll spoof their pedagogies for you. So I'm going to be unfairly extreme, but I think you'll recognize what I'm saying. So let's say we take a report where we're making comments, statements, factual information about a generic class of biological or natural physical phenomena. Sharks,